What do you make of the firings yesterday, Coach?
Well, on July 28th, he said, my commitment to Hugh Jackson is unwavering, and I got to give him a lot of credit for bringing in Todd Haley. So that's what was said July 28th, and we fast forward into 8 games in the season, and there's internal discord. And look, there's oftentimes internal discord on a coaching staff. People have strong opinions. People have strong beliefs. There needs to be a chain of command. I totally agree with that aspect of it. But did they sit down with the GM, the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and the owner and say, look, this needs to stop? Was there anything, was this addressed prior to making this move, or was it just accepted that there's internal discord and we have to move on? And the idea that this is a better situation for Baker Mayfield, I don't know how that's possible. Look, hopefully Freddie Kitchens does a great job. It's his first time as an offensive coordinator, but you're sending years and years of offensive experience out of the door. And say what you want about Hugh Jackson, say what you want about Todd Haley, but to make the argument that from a developmental standpoint or from a football knowledge standpoint that Freddie Kitchens and the new group is going to be able to push Baker Mayfield forward in a way that the other two guys could, I don't see it. I do not see it.
I think it's crazy to fire them both. Like, I understand, and I mean, we were talking yesterday that the only coach with a worse record than as a head coach in the NFL than Hugh Jackson historically is a guy named Burt Bell, who also happened to own the team. So, of course, he couldn't get fired because he was also the owner. I would understand if they said, you know what, 2-5-1, not good enough. The fact that we've been blown out 2 of the last 3 weeks after only winning 1 game in the previous 2 years, not good enough. I also would have understood if they would have said, you know what, Todd, you had a rocky end in Kansas City. You had a rocky end in Pittsburgh. We brought you here, and we're not going to let it get bad. Even though I like Todd, I would have understood firing either one of them. But when the franchise is the quarterback, to fire them both and to put it in the hands of, as you mentioned, a guy, he's called plays once in his life for 1 game, once in the preseason. It seems to me to have no foresight. It seems like they did this just so Jimmy Haslam could say, we're not going to tolerate discord. Okay, well, you're going to have some discord when you are about to be on your 10th head coach general manager. Like, he's on 5 general managers, 4 head coaches, about to be on his 5th. He's only on the team for 6 years and 2 weeks. Like, that's no way to run any business.
Yeah, I have a huge problem with them firing both because Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's the prodigy. It's like you're taking advanced calculus in high school, and then all of a sudden they come in, the principal comes in and say, you know something, your teacher, she's not going to be here, he's not going to be here any longer, and the gym teacher is going to be teaching you calculus. And now you got this prodigy in there in math, and he's looking at like, what am I supposed to do? Because that's where Baker Mayfield is today. To think that Baker Mayfield's career is in better hands today than it was in yesterday, we'd be naive to ignorant. And Coach and I, we know you cannot take that type of football knowledge out the door and it not affect that kid. And we believe that Baker's path, he was on the right path. He was getting coached hard. He was getting some experience. He had some bumps, but he did have some success. He's a guy that you have to make sure that he don't get the football knocked out of him. And this is why I always like to support coaches and players, because this league, man, you can be ruined by bad management, by bad owners. And that's what's going on in Cleveland. You think those guys have a chance to have a great career when the owners, how many coaches? 5?
This will be his 5th coach.
I mean, what would make us think that he's going to go about this? You think he's not going to go to the same search firm? You think he's going to go to the NFL? The NFL has a list of candidates I'm sure that they're going to give him.
He could go to the homeless guy who told him to draft Johnny Manziel. He could go to him.
Man, I'm just saying I don't have a whole bunch of confidence. I think Baker Mayfield's going to be a baller, can be a great, but you are at the mercy of your ownership. And you got to be able to support Baker Mayfield there in Cleveland.
And, Coach, it's not just Baker. You have Baker and you have Myles Garrett. You have a bunch of really good players on this team for the first time in a long time who need to be coached. Besides sitting everyone down, what would you have done? How would you have liked to see this all sort of work itself out?
Well, look, there's a lot of issues here, but we talk about Odell Beckham all the time, and people understood the challenges that Odell Beckham presented. And look, Todd's a fiery personality. People understand that Todd has that type of personality. So it was no secret when he was hired that there was probably going to be a little bit of friction.
Yes.
And so that
But you would think with his relationship with John Dorsey, that because he wouldn't be coming there unless he had a good relationship, that Dorsey would be able to control him.
And it would be one of those things, and I've sat down with players who had difficult reputations prior to coming into organizations that I was running and said, look, if this happens, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to sit back down this table, we're going to discuss it, and we're going to get to a point where we all understand what's happening. But now they're in transition again. And in transition, whoever the new head coach is, there's going to have to be changes because that guy's going to like a certain type of player. That guy's going to like a certain type of scheme. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to change again, and there's this incredible inefficiency with change that teams like New England or the Steelers or other teams that have continuity constantly are able to prey on because everything has to transition now, and it's a nightmare.
Coach, what type of edge would a team have? Let's just say they were average across the board in coaching. All right? Just whatever the league average is, coordinator, head coach, all of it. Just the exact median of the league. But they were in place for 7 years.
You would like to think that they would have a significant advantage because for the players, you build reps. You build on experiences. You understand what's expected on the playing field. But not just that. There's the component of the scouting department, the free agency operation. Scouts know what they're looking for. There becomes an efficiency there. It's the same thing with free agency, that you can utilize the salary cap in ways that you can't when you're changing all the time.
There becomes a trust factor, too. I remember when we got Chip Myers as a wide receiver coach. He was a 6'5", former wide receiver. And he taught me a lot about coming out of my breaks. And after he taught me that, man, I trusted him with anything. I was excited to come to work. I was like, Chip, what do you have? So when you have that experience together, that coach knows what I can do, but that coach also knows what I can't do, and we're going to trust each other more than this continuing turnover that they have like in Cleveland.
And I'm not advocating that Hughes should have stayed with the record that he had, but they should have probably made that move last year. Mm-hmm. Not at this point. You get into 8 games into the season, and now
it's a thrown-away year.
The new head coach comes in, and the last time he coached was 2003.
Right. It's worse than a thrown-away year because if I change the coach should have a right. Maybe I want to play a 34. Maybe I want my outside linebackers to be small. Maybe I want my inside linebackers to be big. Maybe I want more of a speed team. I want a small team. So it's more than just a year changing to what coach is talking about.
And when did John Dorsey come in? He came in late in the season last year.
Yes.
He had the advantage of coming in during the season and seeing Hugh Jackson coach, seeing what was there. He had a huge head start over other guys that come into the situation. So to make this decision now, it just seems reactionary.
When the Niners hired Shanahan and Lynch and gave them both 6-year deals, I had no idea if John Lynch was going to be a good GM. I still don't know. I knew he was out of the broadcast booth. I liked him as a broadcaster, as a human being, but who knew if he could do that job? Kyle Shanahan, I knew he was a very good offensive coordinator. No idea if he could be a good head coach. But I loved the idea if I'm San Francisco, they're both on 6-year contracts together, and you're going to have the continuity. Look across the state if you're Cleveland to Cincinnati. They have, I think, the definition of a league average quarterback in Andy Dalton. I think Marvin Lewis is fine as a head coach. I don't think he's one of the best. I don't think he's one of the worst. You know why they don't bottom out? Because of that continuity. They're 5-3 right now, Cincinnati Bengals. The Browns would swim across Lake Erie for 5-3 right now in the season. And so, I mean, you're not going to get anything close to the peak of your talents if every 2 years you're going through this.
Hey, look, the 6-year contract, that was more of a PR thing than I think a real commitment because all those contracts are written in pencil anyways, and paying off coaches like a rounding error for most organizations. So it was a nice idea. Let's see whether they actually commit to them for 6 years if they continue to struggle like they do. But the idea of changing every year, it's futile. It's futile.
And it probably takes a toll on the players. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.